The first episode of 2021, and such a great book at that to start the year, right? The premise of this novel is the first of its kind. It talks about how in real world we make business and financial decisions not based on spreadsheets but rather at dinner tables and based on our own unique and flawed perspective to the world. And the one that I'm talking about is called The Psychology of Money. And it has these 19 stories which explain our relationship with wealth, creation and money. With this understated brilliance, right, which kind of shines across all of the 19 stories, the author, Morgan Housel, he teaches us, I felt, much more than money in this really short book. So we'll look at 7 lessons around wealth creation, greed and happiness, okay, ones which I really found very interesting in this episode. So let's start with this famous anecdote from this book, right? So apparently there's this person called Ronald Reed, and his Wikipedia entry reads that he was an American philanthropist, investor, janitor and a gas station attendant. So he fixed cars apparently for like 25 years, and he swept floors at JCPenney for like 17. And in 2019, when he died at the age of 92, he could have just been another statistic, but then he left behind a whopping 8 million USD, right? So where did all of this come from? He did not win a lottery. He just saved whatever little he could, and he continued to invest in like blue chip funds. And then he waited for decades together until the tiny savings compounded into the 8 million. And that's validation of this quote, right? That genius is the man who can do average things when everyone else around him is losing their minds. So let's talk about the 7 favorite stories, all right? The first one is that no one is really crazy. So we can judge other people for the investments that they do, but then everyone has a unique experience by which they look at the world, right? And we do not make decisions around financial investments very rationally. It is not based on goals alone, but it's heavily anchored based on your experiences, right? So for example, my parents, both of them worked government jobs, and they saved like a majority, 60-70% of their income towards our future. And that's exactly what I do. Even though I can afford to spend more, that's not what I do, right? So you tend to invest based on the environment you grew up in, right? Not just within your family, but even as a society. The second thing, right, that the role of luck and risk, both in investing as well as in life. So it's very hard to quantify the role that luck plays in our success or failures, and it's rude to suggest that it played a role in people's success, right? So the default therefore that we tend to assume is we tend to ignore it. And like for example, we praise Mark Zuckerberg as a genius for turning down Yahoo's 2006 $1 billion offer. But at the same time, we criticize Yahoo for turning down the buyout offer from Microsoft. So we tend to judge our decisions by their outcomes. So how do you identify what is skill, what is luck, and what is risk? He says these. This is what he talks about in the book, right? Where he says, realize that not all success is due to hard work, and not all poverty is due to laziness. So focus less on specific individuals and case studies and more on broad patterns. So instead of saying, okay, what was Warren Buffett's investment strategy? Can I just emulate it? So instead of doing that, understand the bigger lessons, right? That people who have control of their time are happier. Okay, so that was the second one. Now the third one is never enough, right? So I remember my grandmother telling me the story of this king who kept invading kingdoms because it was never enough. So on those lines, right, he talks about how there's no reason to risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need. It sounds like this Fight Club quote, but the hardest financial skill is to get the goalpost to stop moving. Otherwise, you are never going to have enough. The fourth one is compounding. You can't have a book on finance without compounding, right? So there's a statistic which he throws out, right? That 81.5 billion of Warren Buffett's 84.5 billion net worth, it came after his 65th birthday. So we underestimate the power of compounding, and there are thousands of books written about his strategies and investment, but very few actually talk about how the guy has been investing consistently over like 3/4 of a century. All right, so the fifth one is getting wealthy versus staying wealthy, and how good investing is not necessarily about making good decisions alone. It is also about not screwing up, right? So there may be like a million ways of getting wealthy, but there's only one way to stay wealthy. A combination, he says, of frugality and paranoia. And we don't pay attention to that as much as wealth creation. Yeah. All right. The sixth one, tails you win. So you can be wrong half the time and still win. And this applies, I felt, not just to investing, but even in life, right? So tails or the outliers drive everything. So he gives this example of how 2.5% of investments which are made by VCs, they make 10x to 20x of the returns of the overall portfolio, right? So this happens across investing as well. So your success as an investor is determined not by how you respond to punctuated moments of terror. How you respond to the punctuated moments of terror. Can you like just hold your horses and sit tight while that happens and everyone is losing their heads, and not on the years spent in cruise control, right? So focus on the outliers. And finally, such a befitting story to end this, right? Seventh one, freedom. So what is freedom to you, right? What is freedom to us? So controlling our time, he says, is the highest form of freedom. So being able to wake up each and every day and to say, I can do whatever I want to do today. Yeah. So people think that becoming wealthier makes them happier, but the common denominator, he says, of happiness is that people want to control our lives, right? We just want to have control of our lives. So the ability to do what you want to do, when you want to do, with whom you want to do, and for as long as you want to do is priceless. And that is the highest dividend that money pays. So a great book, right? So I love this so much that I pretty much gifted it to everyone across my team. I think it's a copy that every single person should own, and it's a very short and enjoyable read. I highly recommend you get it. Psychology of Money. Yeah. Let me know how you liked it if you managed to read it, and I'm looking forward to meeting you guys soon. Yeah. Take care.